What did you enjoy the most?
Team.
The team. What does that mean?
It's the way you build the team. You have to build it from the ground up. Whatever you will do, that will be the team's behavior. That's something very interesting with entrepreneurship. Being a co-founder, it's an historic fact. You cannot be dismissed from being a co-founder. It doesn't matter what actual or what operating role you're taking upon yourself. People always look at you and how you behave. What do you do? What statement you give? What decisions you take? Building a culture that will make all this machine work. There's an ocean between them. They hardly talk with each other, and the company runs and the company progress and get more achievements. And the kind of trust, I think, helped us create culture of high trust. I was pretty much fascinated about building a team.
Welcome to the Ageus podcast. Buckle up. This episode is brought to you by CardsBiz, a business card too good to give away. This episode is brought to you by Better Weight for Life, transformational weight loss aid, led by U.S. board-certified physicians, providing access to GLP-1 medications like Wegovy and Zepbound that are proven to help you lose weight and keep it off.
I'm very excited having you on, and that's not only because we have matching haircuts and hairstyles. Yeah, you have quite a rich history in the latest phase of the Israeli startup ecosystem. I want to start it differently. I usually ask people's background and the story, things like that. But I've read many interviews that you had in the past, and I know you're very opinionated. But what would you say makes a good entrepreneur, and what makes a bad entrepreneur?
Whoa, don't have a clue, but I want to say that just recently it nailed to me that entrepreneurship, the most common or the most similar thing to entrepreneurship is to be sick with a chronic disease. Okay, like, is there a good or a bad?
Well, I think there's a graceful cancer patient and there's a less graceful.
I don't know if you can say it for entrepreneurship. It's always
without grace.
Yeah, like you lose sleep most of the time.
So I really strangely identify with what you just said. But to the people listening, why do you have such a morbid description of entrepreneurship? Explain.
I don't think it's morbid. It's just, it's for those that suffer from this disease. That's life, okay? And you have to live with it, and you have to live it, okay? And you have to handle it all the time, and you have to satisfy the bug, okay? Satisfy the virus. And it resonated with me only lately when I did some retrospect, and I saw that all my life I was creating things, learning things, developing, initiating stuff from as far as I can remember myself, always going outside of the line. Even though actual entrepreneurship to start a tech company, I started only at the age of 36. But a few years earlier, I started a tourism business with a few friends. And before the army was Shnat Shirut, okay?
It's civil service.
My civil service was the first time that civil service was done, and that was because I insisted to create it. So only after a few years of common entrepreneurships, I realized that I used to have it all my life. So the bug is with me.
I can understand that. And what is your earliest entrepreneurial memory? Like, how early did you get the disease?
I think age of 10, I was crafting, like doing some woodcraft, and thought, okay, I want to say it might be a business, but I grew up in a kibbutz. There is no such thing as business.
And for people who don't know what a kibbutz is, it's the communist socialist utopia that was invented in Israel to help found the country.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in a kibbutz, but I started doing things for the benefit of somebody.
It's interesting. And it's funny because I had this conversation with Asaf Glazer, who's one of the founders of Nanit, and we both realized at a very early age, both of us, mine was also, I think, at the age of 10, I was in summer camp in the States, and the cafeteria was the only place you could buy Coca-Cola, and it was only at 1, and it cost $1.15. And I borrowed money from my parents, and I remember this, and it cost 25 cents to buy the Coca-Cola in the supermarket. And I basically took my backpack, filled it up with Coca-Cola and some Sprite, and started selling it throughout the day. And like for 2 weeks, I made I don't know, it's there was 5 times on my money, right? It was enormous. I've never found a business that profitable, 5 times on my money, until the cafeteria complained that I'm taking away the business and they shut me down. And he too said that was also one of his first businesses similar. So I think there's something about that age when you start to get the itch. That's a thing. So I'm assuming that considering that you started from a socialist communist background, you became a big capitalist over the years. What kind of drove you? You said in only 36 you did the technology, but what moved you towards technology?
I was, a tech geek as a child. Throughout the youth period, even though there were basically no computers, there was one computer in the kibbutz. It was a PDP, if you know what it is. Yeah. It's a computer that looks like a washing machine.
Yeah.
And my father used to be the person that took care of that computer. So I had the key for the room where the computer was, and I started learning by myself to program. And the first, I programmed even before the first PCs came.
Wow. What language was that even?
It was first BASIC and then Pascal.
Wow.
And then it started developing. So during my high school, it was PCs already, but I learned computer and also, you call it, to control robotic arms and that kind of stuff. I did several projects with that. And then after high school, I didn't touch a keyboard for 10 years.
How come?
Because I did my social service, and then 6 years of I was in the army for 6 years, the Navy.
It was the Navy, right?
Yeah. And then I was on the tourism business. So I basically from 1988 to 1998 didn't touch a keyboard. Now you can imagine how the technology advanced through those years. There was only IBM PC XT or whatever it was back then. You programmed in Pascal or BASIC. Then 10 years later, it's Windows, I think 95 was, or 98. When I rejoined the technology race, and I just had to bring myself up to speed because I had it before. So I studied 2 years of practical engineering. I'm not an engineer. I don't have an academic degree. Practical engineering, and then shut myself back to the industry.
And it was something specific that called you to the technology? What made you go back to it?
I'm a sailing geek. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did all the tourism thing was about sailing and the sea, etc. And then my girlfriend, my wife now, she kind of told me, okay, it's about time to
get a real job.
Get a real job. And it was 99. and or 98, and the whole bubble, the .com bubble started back then. And real job, and I know how to program, and I like it. So let's get a real job.
So what was the real job you got?
The first job,
Yeah.
a company called Vsoft. It was in Yokneam, which was very much in proximity to where I live back then. And I worked there for 3.5 years. Started as an engineer, and after a year and a half, I was kicked up into management. So I managed a team, and after 2001 or 2001, 2002, the bubble eruption came to our company, and it was shut down.
And for kids listening, 2000 was tough.
Yeah.
For anybody in tech, anybody who that was a bloodbath to the kids who weren't alive then. Yeah.
And then I went to a company called Deal Time that became shopping.com, that IPO'd, that was sold to eBay, and all of that in the 3.5 years that I was there. Also started as an engineer, but then it took 3 months to kick me up to manage a team and then manage a group. And in 2006, we started Outbrain.
So before we move to the fascinating story of Outbrain, it's how was it to kind of be in an entrepreneurial environment and then move to a very corporate environment, which is eBay?
It was strange, but I want to say here in Israel, we were pretty much isolated from that.
Mm-hmm.
We continued to run the shopping.com and didn't have much, connection to the corporate, but I was there for, I think, a year from the time we were acquired by eBay to the time I left to start.
So, okay. So now I'm assuming it was a good job in eBay and shopping.com. It was you had prestige. It was a form of success, and the disease called you again. So what happened? What called you to do Outbrain?
A friend.
Yeah.
Yaron Galai. Yaron and I, we did the Navy Academy, the Navy Officers Academy together, and we are basically friends since then. And the thing is that we both like sailing, and we used to go sailing in Turkey, I think almost every year. And in 2006, he came to sail. Yaron already lived in New York back then. He came to sailing and he said, Yaron is a serial entrepreneur. Okay, he's Outbrain is his fourth company, and he said the company before that was Quigo, and he said, I think it's time for me to start a new company. He shared with me and with other guys that sailed with us his idea. We tried to help. We suggested ways to solve it. And, we got back and, but I didn't think about joining him. And then mutual friend, Ziv Kopp, I don't know if you know him, he's a VC. And he also did the Navy Academy with us. And he used to invest in Quigo with Yaron, and he was running the investment arm of Leon Recanati. And he said, Leon and myself, we're going to invest in Yaron's new company. Why don't you join him? And I said, my initial response was, get the fuck out of here. I'm in eBay. And then I thought about it, and then the bug started calling. Yeah. I remember I told my parents about it, and my mother said, what are you doing? You have a great job in a U.S. company. You have great salary, great future ahead of you. You have 2 kids. What are you doing?
Why are you joining the circus?
Joining the circus at the age of 36. And my father told her, he's at the age of 36. When do you think he'll be able to
join the circus?
to join the circus. That's the time for him. And yeah, and I joined, and the rest is history.
So let's go a bit into history. So for people who might not familiar with Outbrain, what was Outbrain, and what problem did it solve?
So my journey at Outbrain took 19 years. So 19 years, things developed. You have to remember that before we started Outbrain, there was no Facebook, no Twitter. YouTube just came out. The browsers did not include Chrome. Chrome wasn't there, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. The internet was different. And I think that the pain that started to develop in a thing that was called Web 2.0, Web 2.0 basically democratized content generation. Okay. And as a result of that, there were piles of content piling up every day. And people that wanted to consume that content were basically facing, a flood of content. How it all came out for us, or how did it start boiling in Yaron's mind? Yaron is content addict. Okay. He's a magazines addict, because the way or the format to consume content back then was to read magazines.
Magazines.
Those with the smile, with the smell.
Yeah.
The actual paper. And Yaron used to bring magazines to our sailing vacation. So, he thought that he will have time to read. And we're sailing together since 1998. And every time he used to bring magazines, and he was reading magazines. And in our sailing vacation in 2004, I remember we were anchoring in a picturesque bay in Turkey and preparing for dinner. And then Yaron came out from the cabin with a pile this thick of A4 printed pages. I told him, Yaron, what the fuck is that? Like,
why did you kill a tree?
Why did you kill trees? And he's a trees maniac. And he said, well, it's 2004. There is no internet everywhere. And that's all the content that showed up for me online. And I want to read it. And I said, are you going to read all that pile? I said, no, of course not. I'm going to read only the interesting ones. And I told him, like, how do you know which are the interesting ones? And we looked at each other and we figured out that there is a problem here. It took 2 years to actually said, okay, there is so much content and so much data. With that, we can probably solve this issue. And that's how Outbrain began. It began with a very ambitious business to like B2C solution, which we pretty fast found out that it's too ambitious to do a B2C one. And, the whole thing developed, and we started working with publishers. But you don't start with publishers. You go to the smallest one that will let you work with them. And these were bloggers. Okay. I think that now you should talk to our younger audience and say what bloggers are.
Yeah, I think some people know what bloggers are. But it's crazy. But bloggers is old now, right? That's crazy. Yeah.
Who is writing blogs?
A few people, like Substack, but not. But you have to be like very high quality or very niche to get attention right now, right? It's like
yeah. Like everything is on social networks.
Yeah.
But back then, social networks did not exist.
Yeah, and also people were willing to read long form, because today,
correct.
Like, oh, this was my day. You would write 2 pages, 3 pages, maybe 5 pages. Today, it's like an image, a video, and maybe 2 sentences at best.
So imagine that people were our first product to bloggers was a 5-star rating widget. Okay, and we did that so people will start rating the content, and we will collect those ratings, and with that we'll start generating content recommendations. But we didn't have data, so we started only with the rating, and the bloggers actually liked it very much. Imagine the thumbs up or the like or the heart that you have now in social networks, it was their first experience with getting feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they liked it very much, and it blew up throughout the blogosphere, and that started giving us more and more data, so we can chew that data and start generating content recommendations, which was our first aim, to be able to put in front of the reader the most interesting pieces of content that they can start reading. And then we moved from bloggers to small publishers. And then 2010 was like a milestone after we managed to stabilize a business model that we started with the major league of CNN, Fox News, and the bigger ones.
So can you speak about the business model?
Yeah, 3 pivots, 6 months between every cycle until we managed to stabilize a business model. But the business model that stabilized is a CPC based model, cost per click, where basically we are all very much, or those that are used to CPC model, it's a cost per click on an ad.
Yeah.
Okay. With Outbrain, the ad was basically a piece of content, but that content is either sponsored or promoted or written by a brand or somebody wants to promote. Our first task, like the first customers that tried us, were actually publishers. Publishers wanted to buy traffic through us. And by that, they actually got readers that will engage with their
Content.
So we started with publishers and then moved to brands and to performance buyers, that kind of
But
stuff.
do you remember the moment? I mean, we kind of skipped a lot, but I want to talk a little about, like, how was it? I mean, what was the time you were running the company until you found a business model? How long?
So it took 3 years, no, 2.5 years until we said we have enough distribution so we can start experimenting with the business model. And then 3 pivots, like another 18 months until we figured out a business model that works.
And how was managing the psychology of that? I mean, both for you as the founders and for the team. I mean, like, was everybody convinced it's going to work 100%? Were there doubts? Was there a sense of stress? Or was it just like another day in the office?
I'll give the credits to Yaron about it. We had to give the team a metaphor that says, this is where we are aiming. We called it the lighthouse because we're sailors, okay? All our metaphors are around the sea, but what happens is that you have, a guiding light that you want to go for. But usually what happens at sea is that you can't go directly, okay? Usually the wind will face you, or the currents, or rocks, or whatever. And you have to navigate yourself throughout that. But if you have a lighthouse, and sometimes lighthouses have some kind of a sector where they are showing light, and a sector that they are showing either other light, red or white or whatever. The sailors know that if they see a white light, then they are safe. So they can move around, tack, or pivot, whatever they like, until they get there, as long as they see the white light. So the same was for us. We had to tell the team, we gave them the vision, and every time they saw that we're doing something that is out of that vision, they had the full right to tell us, hey, we're out of the lighthouse beam.
Okay.
And then we treated it seriously, and if needed, we pivoted.
And how did you define that vision, that light? Like, what was the definition of it?
I think, let me recall, it was like the first one was, Outbrain enable people to discover content they can trust to be interesting. And everything we did was around that. Even if we did our, recommended sponsored content, it had to be interesting and most of all trustworthy.
What's the definition of trustworthy?
That you can trust there is no harm behind it. And I remember time where a client, our biggest client, there were two clients that were our biggest clients. I think it was 2011 or so. And the account manager of those customers came to Yaron's office and told him, I think I understand what these guys are doing. They appear to be a publisher, Republican publisher, it doesn't matter the political view, but they appear to be a news publisher, but their business model is selling something to elderly people that they will give their credit card, and then their grandchildren will try to cancel that credit card charging every month. Okay. We all know that scam, right?
Yeah.
And once we figured out their whole business model is that kind of a scam, we just fired our biggest clients. They went straight into our competition, but that's another story.
But you did your part.
What?
But you took a stand. You took a stand.
We took a stand.
And has that definition changed over the years of what's the lighthouse?
Yeah, definitely. Same thing happens in sailing, okay? Yeah. You progress, you get or closer to your lighthouse, you need to go to the next one.
The next one. Yeah.
And something that happens in technology much faster than in coastlines or geography, the ecosystem changes. And again, remember, there was no Facebook, no Twitter. All the content consumption arena around us changed so much throughout the years,
and keeps on changing.
Definitely. Yeah. So you have from time to time, every few years, to check your lighthouse and see and adjust it.
So just so people understand the scale, at the height of Outbrain's operation, what was the scale you guys operated?
$1 million in revenue. Okay, now we're a public company, so you can say that 1,000 employees. Now Outbrain is teeds and it's basically doubled. So we IPO'd in 2021, the end of the happy days.
The end of the happy days.
Because right after that, a lot have collapsed.
Yeah.
So it was the happy days after the Corona, the end of the Corona, everything went down.
Yeah.
And now, with AI and everything is suffering quite a bit.
Well, I think it's always stormy waters. It's always stormy waters in one way or another. In your 19 years in this adventure, right? It's like, what did you enjoy the most?
Team.
The team. What does that mean? So I mean, you're like you said it with such conviction. Like, what does that come from?
It's the way you build the team. You have to build it from the ground up. Like whatever you will do, that will be the team's behavior. The team is that's something very interesting with entrepreneurship. I told you earlier, being a co-founder, it's an historic fact.
Yeah.
You cannot be dismissed from being a co-founder. And it doesn't matter what actual or what operating role you're taking upon yourself. People always look at you and how you behave and what do you do, what statement you give, what decisions you take. And I was pretty much fascinated about building a team, building a culture that will make all this machine work. And it basically started with, we didn't know that, or didn't notice it, but I think it was one of the VCs that invested in us, like put the flashlight on the spot that it amazed them how a company work where the CEO sits in New York always, like from the first day we started the company. The CTO sits in Netanya, and both of them are kind of NY. Okay. And there's an ocean between them. They hardly talk with each other, and the company runs, and the company progress and get more achievements. And the kind of trust, I think, there was between Yaron and myself kind of diffused into the team, and it helped us create a culture of high trust between.
So, and I mean, you keep saying that you're fascinated by this and something you think about. So, like, what do you think about it? Like, what do you have a philosophy that you've developed and a specific approach? I mean, like, I hear you say, okay, if the founders trust each other and act that way, it affects everything. Right? That's amazing. That's clear. But but is there other things you consciously learn to do to build a team?
So the thing about building a team is it's all anthropology.
Okay.
You have to obey the rules of anthropology in terms of how do you build. It's some kind of a society, okay, a team. When it's a tight, small team, every team member sees you every day. We scratch each other's back every day, and we're able to the culture or the behaviors are diffused by themselves, and then the team grows, and people don't see each other every day, don't coffee in the morning. And one of the things that we started at some point, usually it's the rules of anthropology says 130 150 people, things start to break.
Yeah.
Because
like the human mind can like build the emotional association up to 130 150 people.
Yeah. And that usually starts to break, and at that point trust starts to erode and that kind of stuff. One thing that happened to us in 2012, we grew the company from 75 to 210.
That's an amazing jump. That's not amazing. That's a very big jump
across, I think, 10 geographies or so. And the number of 130, 150 just whooshed around us, and we didn't pay attention to that. We started paying attention to that when we were, I think, 700, and around 700 people from time to time were coming to us and saying what for them Outbrain is, okay? Like what for them the culture is. And we said, we didn't mean that, okay? Something eroded here along the lines, and that's not what our culture is. And said, okay, we have to write the culture. And we called it the Culture Manifesto. We wrote a long paper about the culture. But surviving until 700 people was pretty amazing.
But again, like, why do you think you survived? I mean, you survived because of luck, because you did something that you think that worked well?
I think it's the trust.
The trust.
That, like, the core of the culture was one of the things that we said. We called it trust the other side.
Okay.
It's very natural for everybody to say that the other side is lazy or stupid, or both, lazy and or stupid. But we insisted that the reality is otherwise. And we said, trust us that the reality is otherwise, and that everybody also on the other side, the smartest people we could bring, and they are busting their ass that for the company benefit every day. Just remember that when you're writing a nasty email, or about to write a nasty email, or, about to gossip with your friend next to you about somebody that is across the ocean. That somebody is very smart and busting their ass. So we made sure that people understand that. And I think that was one of the things that kept the culture pretty much intact.
And how do you think you managed to make people understand? Because, it's beautiful to hear, right? but like what are the actions, if any, that need to happen so people like, drink the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we did, like there is a boot camp for new joiners that
Yeah.
are joining the company. And the first thing that they are going through is a meeting with one of the founders. We took all the newcomers every month, and one of us was talking to them and explaining that's how it is here. Okay, these are the cultural things that are important to us. And even before we wrote the culture manifesto, they knew what our expectations are.
No.
And when they happened to saw us, it reminded them that that's what's important for us. And of course, at some point, you have to delegate that through a management backbone and make sure that the management understand that and behave like that. And the management is our ambassadors. For example, when we launched new geographies, we used to do like a try before you buy with a contractor in the geography, that we started working with them and understand if they are up to our culture.
Yeah.
And if they are, we hire them fully. And we said, okay, basically you're the founder of Outbrain Japan because we feel you're one of us. Now go and represent the company culture into the Japanese culture, which is totally different from anything we know. But it was important for us that the people in the field, in the market, will understand the market culture on the one hand, and will be the bridge to the company culture. So we basically hired locals in every geography.
But you
Locals?
basically tested them out before. We just
Yeah,
made sure to test them out before. Like you dated them before you married them, basically.
correct. We actually did an error once in Germany. We hired the head of Outbrain Germany, and after I think 6 months, we discovered that it's not the right person. We fired them. We closed the activity in the market, and we opened it a year later once we found the right person.
That's very not normal corporate America. No, I'm saying in a good way.
For
It's
Israelis, after
yeah,
all.
no, it's a compliment in a way. I mean, it's different, definitely different.
Yeah.
And I mean, so let's say somebody's listening to our conversation, and they're 36, and their friend just convinced them to start a startup, right? They're just starting out, right? We're just starting out. Like, what are the key principles, insights you would say to him or her that you have to get for your thick skull and for the next 20 years?
You start the strongest you can and the hardest you can, and then you go inch up. I told you I grew up in a kibbutz.
Yeah. I saw the joke coming. The truthful joke, but it's coming. Yeah.
It's first of all, be prepared for a long, hard journey. Okay. It's not, if it will be smooth sailing, you're very, 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 very lucky. It's very unlikely to be smooth sailing. There will be ups, downs. Make sure that the team around you, your co-founder, that you are surrounded with people that can support you. Actually, that's my current business, to build communities that can support the lonely leaders like entrepreneurs, which is a very lonesome role. Don't stay alone with that. Find either a supporting community or a co-founder or a team that can support you, and you'll be very, very open with them about everything you're going through.
Super important. Yeah.
Don't stay alone.
Do you want to speak a little? I don't know if you have more things you want to bring, but I'll be very happy if you share a little more what you're working on.
So right now, I started a new company called Solid, SOLEAD. The whole thing started in 2016 when Yaron and myself, we spoke and said, why don't we take a few Israeli founders, high-tech company founders, and go out sailing together in Greece. And we did that, and we had a lot of fun, and it was something very, very special for us. And said, okay, let's do it next year. Next year, it was 21 founders. And the year after that, it started growing, and we didn't miss a year, even in the Corona. We managed to go sailing until we figured out that we actually built a community, a very special one, that helps us not to feel alone during that shitty journey, shitty, exciting journey, I must say. And we didn't feel, we managed to build up something very, very special for everyone in that community. In 2023, we sailed 40 people. And that started feeling very much like a conference rather than an intimate community event. So I thought it might be too big, and you have a product market fit, but you can't scale it. It was something that I said,
artisan, it's like artisan bread. It's like, it's delicious, but you can't really sell it to all the supermarkets in the Northwest, right, of the US.
Correct. So the thing was for me is to create many more, not many, but few other communities. And I had to start make it a day job. So I started the company. Currently have, except for Founders on Water, the old community that keeps on running. They don't give up on that. I also have a community for CTOs and VP R&D. Starting now the third year with them, and a community of social entrepreneurs that are mostly handling rehabilitation of Israel or the Israeli society after October 7th. And I'm trying to bring on a few more communities.
And what do you do? I mean, except basically be locked on a boat, and you have to talk and have to but is there a structure to it?
So there is some structure, unlike conferences or activities that are, or community activities that are very, very structured because people feel like it has to be structured. Here, it's, in my view, or the way I feel about it, every moment that I put structure in, it's less time that I have to speak with each other, interact with each other, learn from each other, get support from each other. So I'm trying really to balance as with less structure that I can. I still need to give some structure to kick the discussions, but the magic happens in the discussions themselves. And what makes the connections very special is that we're just going through very fun experiences together. So the sailing is one of them. Hiking in the desert is another one. We're meeting from time to time. Some of the meetings has content. Some of them is biking in the Negev or whatever. So it's about experiences to create the trust and the intimate dynamics between the people in the community.
And again, I think it's very important. I mean, we talked about when we talked on the phone, I'm a member of EO, the entrepreneur organization, and that's the whole premise. That's the whole premise of that, is that the entrepreneur journey is it's unique. It's alone a lot of the time, even if you have partners, right? Sometimes you like your experience with your partners and all that, and the fact that there's a community of like-minded individuals together, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. It really does.
You said entrepreneurship is, and then you took a brave breath, and I said, he's going to say nightmare.
No, what I say, it's chewing glass. That's my metaphor. So my metaphor is chewing glass. That's what it is. So, like, it's crunchy, it makes cool sounds, but you bleed while you do it, right? And it doesn't taste that good. It's like that.
My feeling was that it was, you know why I'm saying nightmare? Because the nights that you lose sleep, that's the time when it settles on you that it's actually hard,
Yeah.
and you lose a lot of sleep. The fact that I don't know, 400,000 people have their make a living, actually make a living from what you've built, and they are looking at you every day to make sure that they have a living for tomorrow. So I lost few nights of sleep.
Just a few? Just a few?
Yeah, quite a few, I would say. And it's tough. It's tough.
It is.
And the thing is, if you have people next to you that will tell you, that's okay. I also lost few nights of sleep, and that fades away. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, and I say this a lot. It's like one of the most impactful things to me to talk to entrepreneurs and to be part of EO. It's like I know I'm crazy, but I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
It's like oh, okay, other people went through this, and it doesn't make it less painful, but the psychological element of the pain is decreased. We said, okay, they did it, they survived, or they didn't survive and they didn't die, right? So sometimes you don't, like, we're talking sometimes they had to close the company, but they got up again and life continued, maybe even started different company, and even sometimes even better. And sometimes they did it 5 times. True stories. Like, I've known entrepreneurs that did it 5. And for those people, if I had my hat on, I would take it out. Like, that's like really, really impressive. But yeah, it's so important. It's so important on this one. Yeah.
We spoke about the chronic disease. One of the things that people that are sick with chronic disease sometimes has is a community that they communicate with and not feel alone with it.
Yeah. And I would add to that, there's another thing besides the psychological element of it being in part of a tribe. And it's not, and again, I don't know what your experience, but yes, there's a therapy element to it, but I don't think that's the core. I think it's part of the fact that I'm part of a tribe. And when you're a sole entrepreneur or one of 2 entrepreneurs in a big company, a large company, you're not part of a tribe, right? You are an entrepreneur within the tribe. When
you have a special place in that tribe.
Yeah.
Okay. That in a way keeps you out of the tribe.
The burdens of leadership. The burdens of leadership, right? It's somewhere here behind me. I have Marcus Aurelius writing about being. It's like, the whole thing. He's psyching himself up. He's psyching himself. He has dreams, but he has shoulders of bronze, so he can take the weight and things like that. And I understand that. But beside that, I think beside the psychological and the support group element of it, when you talk to other entrepreneurs, and by the way, as I'm doing now in this podcast, which is also some of my motivation here, you learn stuff. There's also practicalities. So behind saying like, oh, I didn't think of this. You did it this way. You tried that and it didn't work. Why? Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe if I do it, I should do it differently. And there's a knowledge share element that I think is also very important because I think you mentioned a few times, there's an art to it, right? It's not all about writing code and perfection. Sometimes it's an art form. And art form you learn by, like the guild system, you learn by watching other people do it. It's not like, here's the book. Like, I love books, right? If, they're all behind me, like my things. But you don't learn, you learn by doing, and you learn by learning from other people that do. There's a thing.
And, one of the things that I found the most helpful is people usually don't have the answers to a challenge or that I'm bringing up, but all they do is ask me smart questions about my challenge, and that started the wheels running in your head. And an hour later, say, "Aha! Now I understand. That's what I didn't think about." And people that can ask you smart questions are entrepreneurs like you, CTOs or VP R&D like you.
Yeah,
they understand the system that
the context.
They leave the same context.
Yeah. Investors, clients, employees, the technological change, and all that.
And all you need to do is to give them time together, an experience that will bond them, and will build the trust.
Trust.
So they can speak about the things that are really hurting them, and they can be not fragile, vulnerable
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah.
And that happens when they are going through common experiences together. It happens immediately. I don't know if you remember your army days, for example. That's what the army does. There is this fellowship that develops because we went through something together. The fellowship or the bond is very, very tight. But my army friends, they know nothing about entrepreneurship or being a CTO. So if I take a group of CTOs and take them through a common experience together, I build that camaraderie that people can ask really smart questions about it. You're part of EO, so
No, yeah, I'm all for it. Like a lot of things you touch, the building of trust, the being vulnerable and be willing to accept other people's vulnerability, especially because as an entrepreneur, you a lot of time have to be, you need to be tough and you need to be, to give a place for that to happen. And it's also very important, very important.
One of the things that I'm saying is that the seawater, they have this chemical within them that is washing all the masks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it peels all the masks of everyone. So the mask that as a leader you put on yourself every day to show confidence and lead with confidence, etc., you get there, everything is peeled.
Yeah, amazing. So before we wrap up, and after this, I think, very human conversation, I actually want to go maybe to the other side of the spectrum and go to the world of AI, because I think it's very difficult to have any conversation today without even touching about. But like, I don't know, do you have an opinion about like the world we're seeing being changed in front of our eyes?
Let me ask AI if I have an opinion.
Which is exactly what I don't want you to do. That's exactly what I don't want you to do, right?
It's very interesting. First of all, as I told you, I have the community of CTOs and VP R&D. Damn, I don't envy them in any way. They are at the melting core of everything happening with AI now. All the identity of their organization. Their organization in 12 months is probably going to look very, very different. The self-identity of what value do I bring to the world is going to change dramatically. And they used to be the programmers of the world.
I'm the best programmer. I'm the most efficient one. I can do the best architecture over, and that's what makes me a good R&D guy, right?
Yeah. And suddenly everybody's losing that. There is white collar and blue collar.
Yeah.
Collar. Suddenly all the white collar professions are losing their ground. I had to choose a profession now. It might be, painter or, floor maker or
the things that it will take a few years till the robots start doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's insane what is going through. Philosophically, the human race is all about its intellect. We used to be the supreme race because we were the most intellectual. Not anymore.
Even though, so here's my pushback on that. Okay, here's my pushback at that, and it's not that I disagree totally. I just and again, it's not like I read a lot, but if you read about like the students of Socrates, right, of the ancient Greek philosophers, and like the OG, the original gangster Greek philosophers were complaining that their students were writing things down, right? Like, how dare they write things down? Because now the ultimate intellectual thing was to hold everything in your head, right? And then there was the printing press, right? And like, oh my God, not everybody has to write everything 100%. And of course, and then there's was I forgot, the ruler, the calculating ruler, and there was the calculator and computer and internet and so on and so on. And our definition of what it is to be smart changed, what it is to be intellectual changed. So I wonder, I know this is humongous. I'm not arguing the point. I'm just like wondering, are we like the self-righteous, very intelligent Socrates, but are complaining that the students are writing things down?
No, I don't think we are complaining. We are obeying to the reality that, the human race is not the smartest thing on earth.
Not the smartest cookie anymore.
No, it's one of those things that we as human had the advantage all the time. The agriculture revolution, the industrial revolution were all to make the human race better and scale better.
Yeah.
And be able to use its smartness even better.
Yeah.
What's going on right now? There is
like,
I don't
how
think.
well you use the next tools, I guess. Like, I don't know. That's what I think, right? It's like.
Do you think it's only tools?
It's an Uber tool, right? It's the atomic bomb of a tool, right?
By the way, what defines the human race over the other monkeys is that we are monkeys that can use tools.
Yeah. Thanks to
Okay.
this, right? Thanks to the thumb, right? Yeah.
Basically, but we could create tools and use them to our benefit. That in a way will make us smarter. But
I don't know. Does the calculator make you smarter?
the calculator?
The calculator, like I used to be able to do math in my head. Now, not so much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know, but it's interesting. What was it's, but I think what was very interesting is what you said about your group of CTOs and R&D and head of R&D is that you immediately didn't go to the technological element. You went directly, and probably rightly so, to the self-identity issue. And I think, and even this conversation, I think one of the challenges, so yes, people say, oh, AI adaptation, how quickly it will come. I think the identification, self-identification issue is one of the biggest things about how it will affect implementation over time and adaptation. Because it's like, how do, so one of the people I interviewed before you is the CEO of Dor, the CEO of Intuition Robotics. And they develop a robot that with a goal of solving loneliness in elderly people.
Mhm.
Such a human act, okay? And they're doing it, and they're doing it well, right? And they're doing it because there's no alternative, right? It's not like I think everybody would say, hey, I would prefer for humans to do it, but not enough humans and a lot of elderly, and also how the modern life is. Such a human act is being done by an AI robot, right? And the statistics are like that. If I remember correctly, 42% of the users develop spouse level relationship with a robot, right? Not friendship, not therapist level, companionship level things. So that's a brave new world. That's a world where it's not only the technology which is amazing, it's like our definition of self-identity.
The right developers today, those that will survive, are not developing like people. I want to say for years, but one of the CTOs told me it's been 18 months that I didn't write a line of code. I told him, 18 months? I didn't write a line of code 18 years, but that's because other people did it. But it's that thing with identity, and what happens and what we're seeing happen is that the developers that are staying in the product development world are those that can be more of a product person. They can speak to clients. They can go to the market.
Have a much more macro view of stuff.
Yeah. They start developing product sense, and suddenly, one developer can, or even today's product manager can develop a feature end to end. Not a big deal.
Yeah. And it's amazing in many ways. It's very amazing. And I think with this optimistic statement. It's a good place for us to wrap up. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you
And
very much.
for people who want to find you and learn more about what you do right now, where can they do that?
My LinkedIn profile and solid.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Chagai.
It's a wrap. This Ageas podcast episode ends here, but you don't. Now, is it crazy to think that you know somebody who'd love this episode? Share it with them, and they'll love you for it.